Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Instagram Live Thursdays. Today's episode, we have a very special guest. As you know, they're all special, of course. You hear me say this all the time at the beginning of the live. Federico Navarrete, who recently published a book, and he is here right now. And let's ask him to introduce himself so that we can get right to this. Federico, thank you so much. Me should be coming any minute now. Okay. Let's see. I don't see you yet. There you are. Welcome. How you doing, Federico?
I'm fine. And
You hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me bring this up. So how you doing?
Well, I was mainly testing how it looks, this experiment, because I tried to, let's say, hang the phone in a nail. So this is something new for me. I've never tried before.
Okay, say that again.
I'm hanging the phone. I don't have it in my hands or anywhere else.
Oh, you're hanging it from where? From the ceiling?
Yeah. I
How?
was testing it to work. I found something and then I used just a string.
Okay, maybe I should try that because I can't even work this tripod to ensure that people see I still have some hair left. Well, it's always when I start, it's one view, so it doesn't matter how I set it up. And then when the guest joins me, I have to readjust the camera. So yes, I was telling you earlier via chat that we agreed to do this live today, but I forgot to ask you what theme to talk about. And going through your profiles in Instagram, you have two interesting things there. I forgot now. Something about change. What's the hashtag? Be an agent of change.
Yes.
Is that what it is? Be agent?
Yes.
Okay, be an agent of change. And there was another one on your other profile. I don't remember that caught my attention. But then I said, hey, how about the title of the book? Because we're doing this live because we want to also promote your webinar this Saturday morning. Saturday morning for us, Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 in the morning. And that webinar is about how to become an author, right? Because you published your book. So tell us about your book. When did you publish it?
Well, the main thing is that I learned how to self-publish it because a difference is that when I was living in Poland, Poland is a Polish-speaking country. This is an English book. So it's not impossible to find a publisher, but relatively hard. Why? Because the book is not written in Polish. And because of that, I had to search for a backup plan and how could I do it on my own because I'm not living in the United States, I'm not living in the UK, I'm not living in Ireland, not even in Malta, that is like let's say that they have two official languages. And that's how I decided that I have heard that you could do the same in Amazon. And then I decided to go there. But the first part was really relatively hard because you might think, well, I'm just going to use a typical a typical Word document. And in fact, it's not. You need to make certain configurations and certain adjustments. And there are important things that you will learn, for example, the webinar, like what is a recto and what is a vecto. Yeah, it doesn't sound like very obvious, but this thing is very crucial and creates a lot of problems when you're printing a book. My first prints were not exactly the best ones, I would say. There were some mistakes because of those things that I didn't understand what was a recto and a vecto, and even about certain margins. I needed to even take like a Harry Potter book that I have, use a ruler, check the height, the bottom, and a lot of things that it was like kind of my way of understanding because there is not a lot of documentation. And also in the beginning, I was considering, hey, I'm going to only publish an ebook. But I noticed that it depends on the book. The people don't necessarily like the ebooks. at least I noticed that in my field that is about folklore, it's like pretty much all sales are related to the paperback. I really don't know. And in the webinar, what I'm going to teach you first is how you can do it properly with this one, like the paperback, and then you can do it on your own. So you can move the paperback to the ebook. In this way, you keep both. Because the most difficult part in my experience is how to do the paperback. But if you know how to do it, then the next is just literally open the second application and then you just go inside. Because the most difficult thing is how to do the configuration.
I see. Yeah, sounds very technical, very complicated. I guess what you're trying to say is that you learned in the process, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because
Hmm.
unfortunately there is no documentation. It's like you can go to the internet and you will find some templates, let's call it templates. And in the end, the only thing that they have is the recto and vecto, more or less, that configuration. But the rest is quite messy. And then you have a lot of troubles when you are making it properly. And if you just go to the ebook, then it's very, very easy because the ebook applications, they use a responsive template, but this is made by the app, not by you, and that's all. But when you try to do the paperback, is when you face all the troubles. And what I created is two templates. So one is 6 by 9, and the other is 5 by 7. And you might ask, why do you have two different sizes? Because it's published in two different places, Barnes and Noble, and the other one is Amazon, and they require different sizes.
Interesting. Yeah, I see the Margaritas here. Hi, Margarita. Hi, Lucy.
Hello,
And
Margarita.
Margarita has published her own book too. Yes,
That's
so sure she understands what you are talking about. Yes. So how about before we get to the publishing part, how did you come about writing this topic, this book, and how did you do it? This is based on life experience. Did you do research?
let's say that when I was a kid, my mom, like, when I was a kid, my mom used to work for the United Nations, and she was delivering food
Oh,
in El Salvador. She was not in a high position; she was just a social worker delivering food. And because we were not very rich, my mom always picked me up with her to the random places in El Salvador. Because where could I stay? I was a troublemaker, and I caused a lot of troubles at home. My mom was almost fired because of my thing. So my mom decided, I'm gonna pick him. I'm not gonna be fired the next time. So I started to travel with her all across the nation and into every small villages. And when my mom was in the, let's say, speaking with the people, let's say the school directors or the anyone that was the people that they delivered the food, they left me with the old people, and the elders were teaching me things about the regions, and that's how I learned. And on Fridays, because I was still a troublemaker, my family belonged to something called the Lions Club International. In that place, I stayed with other with the people, the security guards, and the security
hmm.
guards taught me more things about El Salvador. But I never considered to write a book, even though my grandma always asked me to write a book. It was I'm an IT guy. I work in the IT sector, and I've been here
Yeah.
for I have no idea, 14 years or 15 years, and everything happened by pure accident. In my second year in Poland, I there were such the 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 city hall was organizing an event called the International Boat of Culture, and they were searching for, let's say, speakers from abroad that they were living in the town. And I nominated myself, and I shared my story about being a Salvadorian living there, how was my transition, and how I was doing my things there. Then the people told me, but your country is not only bad things, and no, the
I
people were
know.
very
Image,
shocked.
right? Leave it to those images that people create in their minds based on bad press or whatever.
Yeah, the people were very shocked when I showed them the beautiful beaches, when I spoke about some things about the animals, and when things about the some small legends, because there are so many stories from El Salvador that I only spoke about four. I didn't have enough time to speak. Then, additionally, I had another friend who was helping me to go to Microsoft Imagine Cup, But as part of the deal, I had to create workshops about my country and put, let's say, encourage Polish people to read the stories in English about El Salvador. They didn't exist in English, so I had to do the first translations and then interact with the people in the workshops. But and again, it was then when I was in Toastmasters, some members were trying to pushing me. I had to do presentations about El Salvador because they wanted to know about my country, and I never performed those presentations because I had other kind of ideas. And
Right.
then it came the same confusion. But your country is not only bad things, and I was no, and they were very confused because it was like really, man, my country is not only bad things. Of course, there are a lot of bad things, but it's not only these things. And after that, I started to decided to perform some speeches about certain legends, the ones that I had already translated, because they were already translated, so it was easier to perform them. And the people were very curious about those things. Then I decided to start writing a blog. But a blog is, you can imagine that there was not a lot of proofreading on anything, but it's just a blog. I was just trying to translate as many things so people can read about El Salvador. Years later, I came to Madrid to a business meeting where I met a Finnish woman, and she told me, "Why don't you write a book? You already have a lot of stories." And then I thought she had a good idea, and then I collected some stories because, as I said, one is blog's quality that is not necessarily the one from a book; it's completely different. And then I started to rewrite it in a way that it has the quality for a book. I needed to even hire a proofreader from the UK. I hire an artist, and I needed to do many things. Especially because when I wrote the book, how to say it, there is a massive difference between the Polish culture, the European culture. I interacted with 32 different nationalities just living in Poland, and even I live in Spain, and I keep working with people from abroad. And there is something that I learned that I didn't know existed. It's called cultural intelligence. My proofreader told me, I do not understand. I understand what you mean, but I missed something. And I had to even rewrite certain stories, reorganize the stories, put them in a different order. The story was the same, but in a different order because for her as a native speaker from the UK, she was lost.
Well, I don't
Because,
think I heard that term before. Cultural intelligence?
yes, cultural
Interesting.
intelligence is the ability that you have to interact with people from different societies and to know how to communicate with them. Because, for example, my colleagues in the office, they tend to have difficult experiences working with Indian people. The Indian people work very easily with me because I used to work with Indian people. When I'm living in Spain and I meet Polish people, I immediately connect with them because I was living there and I know what they like, how they behave. I know what kind of, I directly connect. I have worked with Finnish people, with German people, and with people from so many countries that it was very curious for me. And then, for example, my girlfriend is from the United States, and it's the same story. When I need to connect with her, because she's from a specific village, I need to connect in different. It's like how I communicate with certain people is different. I didn't know that, and when I wrote the book, I had to add certain things that, for example, I needed to explain what is the concept of a mischievous guy in El Salvador. Because when the proofreader read that section, said, "What do you mean here? I, as a native speaker from the UK, I don't get it, and I speak Spanish. I don't get it." And then I needed to explain that, yeah, the person was making graffitis and destroying the places and doing a lot of evil things in the streets. Then she understood. But I needed to explain all those things. I needed to add certain details. In another case, she said, "Well, you're speaking about like a village, but I do not understand how the people went to the top of this place. It's because in theory we're here, and then you appear in this volcano." Then I needed to add like a certain descriptions to explain that, yeah, that the place looked like this, that it's a hilly location, because she didn't understand what it was. Also, she gave me a very crazy idea I think you told me it came from Game of Thrones or something like that because I never watched it, so I'm a very bad example. She told me this idea of creating a story map,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
yeah, it's quite
I
unique.
watched Game of Thrones, and yes, I remember the opening of the show about that map. Yeah,
Yeah,
about the
she
map that they
explained me that,
use. Oh,
and you can like very obviously see that there are a lot of here because my grandma was from there, and well, mainly I travel across certain regions, but the unique stories come from here, from where I was traveling with my mom.
that's beautiful. That's wonderful. Yes.
And
And
like I
I have a
mentioned, well,
Kindle, so I know it's available in Kindle. So I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it electronically in
yeah,
Amazon. Then
and in
just
my
again
case,
for the people, so they're gonna stay to the end. What's the name of your book again?
timeless stories of El Salvador.
Yes, and that's the title I put in the graphic promoting this life. Yeah, timeless stories of El Salvador. Interesting. I wanted to know about that process, but the two things, going back to cultural intelligence, I wasn't sure what that meant. I major in communication.
Yeah,
My second career, and there was the term intercultural communication. Let me say that was one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite subjects. Right, when I went back to school and major in communications, I have to see in this global market, all this intercultural communication, or as you say, cultural intelligence still plays an important role, whether you're communicating or whether you're writing. Same principle. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about, I wanted to hear about the origin of your book. How did it come about? So interesting story about this fair in Poland and your Toastmasters friends pushing you to talk about El Salvador, which is who you are, where you're from, right? For many years, I've been wanting to bring my humorous speeches to short stories and publish a collection of short stories. But it's different. It's not the same thing to write a speech, to write for the ear. I'm sorry, to write for the eye, as they say in Toastmasters, right? So for so many years in Toastmasters, I'm writing just outlines, right? Not so much word by word, everything. I'm writing outlines and then I deliver. But I did register for a creative writing workshop in school, and I loved it because I was finally able to bring one of my humorous speeches to a short story, and I had to change just about everything. If I just wrote the outline, it was just 2, 3 pages.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
I have to expand my imagination. So now I still want to compete one more time, and then perhaps next year the international speech. So I'm still working on improving my speech writing skills. So I don't want to mix it up right now because it's different. But eventually I will start writing for the eye. And yes, I'll be consulting with you
feel free to
about
ask.
the publishing part and everything from the beginning, from scratch. Yeah. Yes, I like
Yeah,
the cover of your book as
yeah.
well.
On Saturday, I'm going to explain all those details from the very beginning. Like I consider like the basics that for me is like, let's call it the things that are obvious, but people don't pretend that they do not exist. That's why I'm going to go to the, let's call it the basics. Then I go to the paperback because for me it's like, if you go straight to the ebook, it depends on the book that you're publishing. You might fail because I really because I'm still only writing about folklore. I cannot really tell you which books attract certain groups of people or not. Why? Because I mainly read electronically. That's why I really do not. I cannot really answer that question. But I know that in my case, pretty much every sale, like 80% or over 80% comes from paperback, and that's but if you want to go to the other, I'm going to explain you also like because
Hmm.
if you write the paperback, the other is just open the application, import the word, and that's all. There will be small
Yes.
mistakes. These mistakes are so tiny that it depends on the interpretation from the application, but sometimes are inexistent. In my experience, the hardest book to publish is the one from Apple because you must use Pages. That is their kind of word, and there is no other way to do it. And that application, it is tricky. I'm going to explain also that because if you use this one to try to polish the one from the Play Store or the other, you're going to fail. And it's straightforward. I made that mistake, and that's why I'm explaining that you shouldn't use it. I have even a crazy document explaining
Good.
everything.
Now that you mentioned that, let me tell the viewers about this webinar you're presenting Saturday, August 28th, 9:30 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time here in Northeast, I'm sorry, the East United States and Canada. And you're 6 hours ahead, right, in Spain. So that would be 3:30 for you,
Yeah.
3:30 in the afternoon. So if you're watching from overseas, just mm, keep in mind that it's 9:30 in the morning Eastern, what we call in the United States Eastern Daylight Time. And yes, for a couple of months already, we talked about your scheduling this webinar. Margarita says that it's tough to write a book, but it's very rewarding. So tell us, uh, based on that.
I will say that it is hard, especially in that I will say that the most difficult is when you do the transition, like when you said that you have a speech for the listeners and a speech for the viewers, or let's say the readers. And the same happened to me because let's say my blog, I will say it looks more like speeches for Toastmasters than a book because
Mhm.
it's quite obvious. I'm a Toastmaster, so they are shorter and I don't go into so many details like in the book that you need to expand a lot of things, and that part is hard. But what I can tell you, and it's something that for me is the basic, start writing at least 5,000 characters per day. I'm not saying word characters. Word can give you the number, and just write as much as you can. In the beginning, you will say, yeah, but this reduces the quality. Yeah, in the beginning, it's just to have enough, let's say, to have enough material. Then you start reducing what you don't need and you remove certain things. But the very beginning is when you decide to write a book, try to write as much content as you can. Of course, there are certain areas when you are focused on history, that one is not going to work like that. Or if you study mathematics or computer science or things like that, it will take you more time. Those things you need research, and those things are going to take even longer because
Mhm.
it's not like writing stories that in the end many things come from here, the others comes from hundreds of additional books that you need to collect and understand because it's very different to write a paper than writing a book, or let's call it a fiction book. Something else that I explained in the webinar, because I'm going to give some details, because the non-fictional books look slightly different from the fictional ones. There are small differences
I
that
can
if you make
imagine,
certain
yeah.
mistakes, then you can confuse the audience, especially the let's say the readers, because you might give a wrong impression.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that webinar. I'm so excited that you accepted this invitation. And as a matter of fact, I suggested the topic to you as well. Yeah. And I see that and you have the experience, you're enthusiastic about it. So I'm looking forward to it. So again, the book is titled Timeless Stories of El Salvador by Federico Navarrete. You say Navarrete. It's double R in there. And Federico, this is available in more than one source, correct?
Yeah,
They
it's
are?
available in Apple, Google Play, Kobo, Amazon, and Barnes and Noble. And also, I'm going to explain you those things and also the pros and cons of doing what I did.
Yeah, I want to know because I don't have an iPhone and I don't have Apple. So I wonder if when I get to this couple of years from now,
The
and
thing is that
whether you need to have an Apple
you
account or something.
you need to understand certain things that, for example, the companies does in order to discourage you to do those actions of polishing
Oh,
labels.
got it.
Yeah,
See, that's how naive I am about all this.
yeah, I'm going to explain you those things. But in my case, the main purpose of why I went to this wild movement is because for me, the main purpose of the book is to change the perspective that people have about El Salvador. That's why I went
Yes,
into that.
I
I
know.
never wrote the book in order to, let's say, to have Netflix movies or, let's say, Netflix series. If that happens, it's great because more people will know things about El Salvador. But my perspective, my main goal was, hey, El Salvador is not only bad things. Let's change these things into these things. That's why I wrote the book, because my main purpose was to change that specific mindset that I met in Poland.
No, there's a big Salvadoran community here where I live, right? A lot of restaurants, Salvadoran restaurants, if that's the way to say it, Salvadoran restaurants. Yeah, yes, and interesting. And stores. There's a store not too far from where I live that clothing, this typical outfits of the folklore, as you said, traditional Salvador. So yes, I'm a little bit familiar with that. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, Federico, so that's the book. And then the webinar again is this Saturday, August 28th, 9:30 in the morning. Register, excuse me. The Zoom link is it's on the bio of this page, Harold Speakers Bureau. I'll do another posting later, definitely by tomorrow, no later than tomorrow. And then, of course, I will copy the link there as well. And I want to thank you very much for participating in this live today. This is the third time. This is the third time you are a guest in the Instagram Live Thursdays, and it's an honor. It's an honor for me. As always, pleasure talking to you. And I'll let you say the final words.
Thank you very much, Julian, for giving me the opportunity. And hopefully, we'll see more people becoming authors. And I would like to see you also publishing your book of small stories also in the next year.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, thank you all for watching, the viewers. If you have any questions, put it in the comments, and mm, Federico will see this, of course, because I will tag this video to his account, and he'll be happy to address your questions. I already know that Vincent sent me a comment over here. I don't know if you saw it, Federico. He wants to ask you questions. He asked me for your contact, and I'm going to be sending that to him later. And then anybody else, feel free to ask questions in the comments, and we'll take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So long, everyone. See you next week. And Federico, I see you in a few minutes, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll see you in a few minutes. Bye bye.